Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our Chart Your Path Leading Students Towards Guided Pathway Success webinar. My name is Karen Gonzalez, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Vita Navis and CPP. I'll be moderating today's webinar. Today's presentation will run for approximately 30 minutes. We will have time for questions throughout the presentation, as well as at the end for about 15 minutes. You can send in your questions by using the question function in the webinar controls. Today's webinar is being recorded, and we will be emailing you a link to the recording as well as a PDF copy of the presentation slides. If you also take a moment right now to look at the webinar controls, you will see a handout section of the webinar controls, and you can go ahead and download a copy of the Chart Your Path brochure that we will review today. We're also going to be doing a little bit of tweeting, so if you're on Twitter, we'd love to have you follow us, and our handle actually is @VitaNavis. And we'll be using hashtag VNSuccess. So please go ahead and share some tweets with us. Now I'd like to introduce you to Mike Nowicki, Director of Educational Opportunity Center at the Community College of Denver. Mike has served as a TRIO Educational Opportunity Center Program Director for the last 2 years and has over 10 years of experience working directly with students as both an advisor and in case management roles with various workforce development programs. Mike obtained his Master of Education in Human Resources Studies at Colorado State University in 2015 and is also certified to administer the MBTI and Strong Interest Inventory assessments. Mike has a strong passion for helping students find their academic and career fit, particularly students from low-income and first-generation backgrounds. Now with that, I'd like to turn the webinar over to him. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you very much, Karen. Hopefully everyone can hear me, and I'm coming in very clear. So thank you all for being here. I'm kind of excited to do this webinar. This is my first webinar that I'm doing, so hope you all will be kind of patient with me and understanding if there's any glitches along the way, but I will go ahead and start here. So a little bit about what we'll cover today. Kind of just give you an idea of how CCD, the Community College of Denver, integrated the Super Strong tool into our new student orientation process, and talk a little bit about the initiatives, some of the background at CCD that kind of led to us implementing this tool, and also something that I'm really proud of. We developed a brochure, a kind of a guided tool to help contextualize the result that students would get on their Super Strong, and also let everybody know a little bit about the preliminary outcomes and the future vision for how we see implementing Super Strong kind of going forward, particularly in advising in the classrooms. Just a little bit more about my background, if any of you are curious. I work as the director of the TRIO Educational Opportunity Center at the Community College of Denver. So I don't know if I have any TRIO colleagues that are on the line or connect well with their TRIO programs with their campuses, but the EOC program is probably one of the more lesser known TRIO programs, but really we're an access program. We have an access mission. We're a community-based program, and CCD is our grantee, and we work with those that are 18 and older, so primarily the prospective students that are transitioning out of high school or working age adults. And really our goal is to help low-income first-generation students access higher education. And a lot of that work involves helping them find a good academic and career fit. So 6 of my advisors I have an advising team of 6, and we're all administered to interpret and the Strong Interest Inventory and the Myers-Briggs, and we're really comfortable in that role of talking with prospective students, helping them figure out career goals and good academic fit for educational programs in the Denver metro area. CCD, for those of you not familiar, Community College of Denver, we sit on a tri-institutional campus called Auraria in downtown Denver, and we share a physical location with Metro State and University of Colorado at Denver. So it's kind of a unique model in that somebody coming to the Auraria campus can either get a certificate, a career technical education kind of a certificate, or get their doctoral degree. So it's kind of a unique model, staying in the same area. CCD has about 2,000 full-time enrolled students and about a 7,500 head count, and about 45% of our students receive or are eligible for Pell Grants. You know, I wanted to go just a little bit over the current initiatives at CCD, just to give you a little context. We are part of a state community college system, which comprises of 13 campuses across the state of Colorado. And currently, the system is pushing forward the full implementation of EAB Navigate. So perhaps some of you use that system or you know, very familiar with it. We've just started our first year this semester with that new program. Also, CCD is working with the American Association of Community Colleges to implement guided pathways, practices, and principles. So a couple of years ago, CCD undertook the work of reorganizing their programs into 6 distinctive pathways, which this is still kind of evolving. It's not a finished product yet, but we started a lot of that work already. And you know, with these new initiatives and with pathways, we're really trying to help students, you know, find the right pathway very quickly, because a lot of the major thrust of the Pathways initiative is to really help give students focus and guidance from the get-go. So, you know, with that, CCD looked at tools, EAB and then Super Strong as ways to sort of help students, you know, become more self-aware of what their interests are and how they connect it to different, you know, different pathways that CCD was offering. So a little bit more about that. You know, when there's a career exploration tool in EAB Navigate, but when a lot of the folks at the colleges worked with that, or just kind of were exposed to that tool, they kind of left not feeling totally satisfied. It's you know, it's just kind of a quick interest questionnaire. It has some questions about, you know, students, you know, what are their long-term interests, short-term goals, and it sort of generates a list of different program options, you know, based on those results. But there's really, it's kind of a black box tool, meaning that there's really not an awareness of how those interests translated into the results that the students received. So we actually looked at the Super Strong because there was more of a robustness and it was more informative of you know, how students, how they can kind of become more aware of their interests and how those interests actually kind of connect the different career opportunities and academic programs here at CCD. We actually kind of informally brought in a student panel. We just kind of grabbed some students through different departments who are work studies and kind of had them play around with both with both tools, and they really overwhelmingly you know, preferred the Super Strong for the information that it gave. They found it more dynamic, more interesting, more informative. So you know, with that sort of informal panel, CCD really made a decision to implement the Super Strong in kind of a scaled up way, so that, you know, we can help our students figure out which is a good pathway fit for them. So, you know, a little bit more about the Super Strong for those of you who might not be aware of the tool or what sort of functionalities that it has. It's really a sort of a streamlined version of the Strong Interest Inventory. So it has the general occupational themes, the basic interest scales, the personality scales, but it doesn't incorporate the occupational scales. And you know, as a practitioner, I really love the occupational scales. I think it's very informative. It's really powerful. But I do think it takes a lot of you know, context in the interpretation session with students, because they sort of sometimes reflexively take that as a kind of a prescriptive list. And I mean, it's like, no, it's not saying that these are the occupations you should do. It's more of just, you know, a way for them to kind of understand how people in those occupations have how they have similar interests or similar dislikes, and just to really kind of think about the themes that emerge in those different occupations. So so anyway, that's a little bit about the Super Strong tool. I'll have a few slides on some screenshots of what the tool looks like here coming up. Also, the mobile nature of the Vita Navis platform, which houses the Super Strong, is really cool because it's dynamic, and students just, of course, love working on their phone. So that was definitely an appealing aspect of the instrument. ONET is integrated into the platform as well. So when students get their results, they're able to link into ONET and pull some of that labor data. So I'll go over that a little bit more too in a little bit here. And also, what I think is really unique about the tool, something that I really appreciate, is the students are able to indicate whether they like or they're unsure, or they dislike some of their basic interest scales, or what they call career interests. And I've really found that data helpful, kind of when looking at our orientation sessions, the students who've taken the instrument, kind of what they said they liked or what they didn't like, or they were unsure of. So I'll give you a little bit more, a little overview more of how orientation works here at CCD, to kind of give you an idea of how this was integrated into our new student orientation sessions. Approximately 1,800 students go through new student orientation a year at CCD. This is mandated, so they have to go. There are some, of course, exceptions, but generally we want to encourage students to go through new student orientation. It's a very high touch model, meaning that it's a real kind of, it's really helping the students get to class registration at the end of new student orientation. So it takes about a 4 or 5 hour event, and sometimes we'll bring them lunch or some snacks for breakfast. Let's see here. It's also, I think, by the way, with Pathways, I think we're really looking at redesigning our new student orientation to make it more engaging for students, because it is sort of more of a transactional kind of event for students, and that's definitely something we want to rethink and create more opportunities for students to get more engaged. But actually, the Super Strong is a very engaging tool, so that's really a kind of a first step in creating more of those engagement opportunities for students at new student orientation. There's a lot involved in our new student orientation process at CCD. There's a lot of different departments, admissions for evaluating transcripts. Our recruitment team sort of runs some of the sessions with student ambassadors, financial aid, helping students figure out verification paperwork. Our academic advising team is present, faculty, outside presenters. So it's really again a full day kind of activity. And so we have about 35 orientation sessions with an average of 50 participants per session, so throughout the year. So there's quite a lot of orientations that occur. And so when we decided to go forward with the Super Strong tool, we had to make room in our new student orientation session to allow that to happen. We weren't really at the place where we were going to go through a full redesign of what we were doing for new student orientation. So we really wanted to carve out some time for students to interact with the Super Strong assessment and do more of a career exploration component. Because previous to this, there really wasn't much that we were doing on the career exploration side with new student orientation. So other than students who would kind of be proactive and maybe asked to see our department or somebody at Career Services to engage with some of that work. So through this process, we were able to kind of move the dominoes around and get about 45 minutes where we could have the students engage with the Super Strong assessment. But there were a lot of questions we had to ask along the way. should we try to give the students the assessment ahead of time so that they come with it? If we're not going to have enough time to do a one-on-one interpretive session with these results, time won't allow for it. So, how can we best help them contextualize the results, and understand and inform them of their interests and how they connected to the various pathways at CCD. So those are the questions that we asked, and we went, we spent a lot of time kind of thinking through that, and kind of seeing what our options were. And we sort of landed on, basically, we only have 45 minutes to work, for this time that we could find, and so many of our students walk in. About 40% of our students walk in, and they don't pre-register. So, I was really pushing for having the students utilize this tool prior to them arriving at new student orientation, because I really wanted to have all that 45 minutes really time to kind of engage with those results. But we just didn't think that there would be enough students who would take it ahead of time, and then we would be kind of off sync. So we decided to have them take the assessment in new student orientation on their mobile devices. We kind of thought about, well, what if students don't have their mobile devices with them? Should we kind of have them go to a computer lab and then come to our main, we call them the assembly rooms. They're kind of a big space where we do where we work with the group during new student orientation. But it was really just, I think, just because of some of those limitations with the computer labs, we said, okay, well, let's just have them take the assessment on their phone. But there was a lot of anxiousness around that. We really didn't know if students, enough students, or there were going to be enough students that didn't have phones, or weren't going to be comfortable with that device taking the assessment. And I think this was a big sort of paradigm shift for a lot of folks here at CCD. It really was. There was any doubt that students aren't, able to, use their phone in a comfortable way. That was kind of dispelled with this project, because students were really comfortable taking the assessment, and we had a lot less complications than we thought, and so that was really a pleasant surprise. And also, we really wanted to have a way to sort of, give them more feedback or information on their results. Doing interpretive sessions for, the strong interest inventory for a lot of years, I really felt that students would benefit from, more of a discussion or debrief on their results. And I think, the instrument is effective just by giving the students the link and having them take the assessment and kind of go through the results on their own. But I really thought it could be amplified by having some type of facilitated discussion and more of an opportunity for them to kind of reflect on their results. So we designed a presentation and also a guided brochure that you all have, you all can download and kind of look at. So I'm going to go into that a little bit more here in a moment. And also, kind of as I put on the PowerPoint here, we wanted to also use the discussion time to kind of highlight some of the features in the Super Strong, especially the occupational data, the themes, the general occupational themes, and again, how they connect to the different academic programs here at CCD. So I kind of went over this a little bit, but for the most part, students really felt comfortable on their mobile device. We even our highest new student orientation sessions, which were close to 90, it was amazing how many students didn't have a mobile device. Some people said, well, maybe 5 or 10% won't. And so for that, for those students who might not have had a mobile device, or maybe it just was out of power, we had iPads at the ready, so we just handed those out. But sometimes there was, out of a session of 80 or 90, we gave away 2 or 3 iPads. That was really quite a surprise that we had. Wi-Fi capacity, that was an issue we kind of looked at. You know, we were going to have all the students at the same time essentially take the assessment. And so we really didn't know what that was going to look like if you know, things were going to crash, or the Wi-Fi wouldn't be capable of handling all those connections simultaneously. And that was a little bit of an issue, actually. Our IT team upgraded our assembly rooms with kind of high capacity routers, and the broadband on those are really are very robust. But the problem is that they only take about 50 or 60 signals, and then I guess they're not intuitive of how they balance those signal loads. So, you know, if too many students were in one area of the assembly room trying to get on Wi-Fi, it was sort of overwhelming the router. So, you know, it's interesting. IT, what they were having to do is, you know, reposition the routers, you know, really in the assembly room, so as to kind of help balance out that load a little bit. But we figured it out, and even with 80 or 90 students simultaneously taking the assessment, there really wasn't much of a lag time after we kind of, you know, tweaked the router situation a little bit. But it is something that where, you know, you would need to have the capacity to handle those connections simultaneously. And you know, even though we're in Denver, we're sort of in a dead zone here at the area campus with cell service. So you know, I think you need to have like three or more bars to really effectively do this instrument online. We were concerned about the average time frame that students would have taking the super strong assessment, and we found that, you know, it was about 10 minutes from them to create an account to actually jump in the assessment. And so it's about, I think, around 60 questions or a few more. And it was about 10 minutes. Sometimes students took a little bit longer, but that was the average time. So, you know, we had about 35 minutes after they created an account, took the assessment, to kind of go over the results a little bit more in detail. So, so I've done a lot of talking, so I just thought I would pause for some questions here. Next I'm going to talk about our the brochure that we developed, help guide them through the results, and also a little bit more on the PowerPoint that we created to kind of, you know, facilitate that discussion. So so yeah, I'll just, if there's any burning questions anybody has or something somebody wants to ask, I think now would be a good time to do that.
Mike, we got a question asking, what are the demographics of the students?
A great question. Well, we are a Hispanic serving institution, so I believe, and I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I believe we are 30%. Well, you know, as far as the low-income perspective, about 45% of our students are Pell eligible. I believe it's a little over 30% are Latino. African American, I believe, is somewhere in the range of 10 to 15%. Asian Native American, I think, is around 5%, and the rest white. Sorry, if I'm getting that wrong, I apologize. I don't have those numbers, but I just had to take a guess. That's what I would say.
Oh, thank you. So we're getting a few more coming in. Another one is, are all the students that attend NSO taking the assessment, or only those that are undecided?
That's a great question. I think we really struggled. You know, initially I wanted to just have the students who were undecided take the assessment, and some of the other deans kind of pushed back because they felt that even though students sometimes declare that they have a program in mind and they're very secure, 70% of our students change programs throughout the course. So it was sort of decided, even against what I was really pushing for, that all students take the assessment. And one of the worries and the concerns with that is that, you know, students would engage with this tool, do some of this, you know, career exploration work, and you know, their pushback might be, well, I already know, you know, what I want to do. I'm already coming for, you know, X, Y, and Z. And so I think the strategy with that is to really show them some of more of the ONET or the labor data that's contained in the tool, to kind of say, hey, even if you know what kind of program you want to do, there might be some interesting labor data that you might, you know, that you could access and learn more about. So So we decided to kind of roll it out to everybody in the group session, whether they were undecided or had declared a program of study.
Thank you. And this is more of a clarifying question. So is the orientation only for the TRIO students?
Yeah, so it's for the entire college. And so it's about 1,800 students a year go through our new student orientation, but it's for everybody who's sort of a first-time new student to CCD. There's if they're a transfer student or an online student, there are some other options, but it is mandated for every new student coming to CCD.
Okay, great, thank you. And then there were a couple more questions. They came in around the time you were answering the demographics question, but they're asking about, are most of these students first generation or first in their families to attend college? So I think you got into that a little bit. And then another question was, will you provide more details about Super Strong and how we can access it? Which I think you'll be talking a little bit more about how your students do that. And then sorry, I'm going a little fast because I know we got a few more questions that popped in. Another question was, does CCD have a college-wide license for the Super Strong, or are students accessing a free version of the assessment?
Yeah, so then maybe I can have somebody else chime in here too, but CCD acquired a grant through this initiative called Project Success to the Department of Education, and I really wasn't involved at that level, so I don't have all the details. But essentially, one of the tools in this Project Success grant was the Super Strong, and our president really was, the college really saw the potential in this tool, so he elected to have that as one of the tools. So so that's how we acquired the instrument and how we're using it with students.
Great. And just a couple more. Do you have time for a couple more, or would you like to? I can save these for the next pause.
Yeah, I think we can maybe one more, and then I'll kind of move on because I don't want to. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Go out of time.
Sure. One of the questions was, how much does it cost to support these orientations? Yeah, those questions.
Yeah, I mean, luckily we're able to have a few community partners. We'll do presentations, so they're able to sponsor some of the food, and then we have some of the giveaways that we have for students. I don't know exactly what our total budget is for the new student orientation process here at CCD, but it's not a very high cost component of the budget from my understanding, because we're using a lot of student affairs folks, faculty, academic affairs. We're not bringing a lot of external things to our new student orientation that would drive up the cost. So.
Okay, great. And I think I will just let you go on now, and I can save the rest of the questions for the next pause.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
So what I wanted to show you all was this brochure that we developed. I'm pretty proud of it. I think it's kind of it was an effort of a lot of people. I saw the potential in this tool, and I wanted to create some type of visual to how students can again start to kind of connect their interest into the different academic pathways here at CCD. And we didn't have a way in the traditional model to meet with students kind of one-on-one and do an intensive interpretive or advising session, at least right away. And so I wanted to create something that the student could start to kind of connect those interests and see how they start to overlap with the different academic and career options here at CCD. So on the left-hand side, you guys have a kind of two-dimensional PDF of the Chart Your Path brochure, but it's really designed to be kind of folded. So on the left-hand side of the screen there, you see the Chart Your Path. So when the students are at orientation, they'll get one of these brochures. And then when they open it up, they'll have the steps kind of outlined for them. So step 1, step 2, and I'll kind of go through this a little bit here in a moment. By the way, I apologize for the sirens going in the background. I hope it's not too distracting. And so they open up the brochure further, and they get step 3, step 4, and then step 5 and step 6. So if you kind of look from left to right, that's the student experience with the brochure when it's folded. So that's, I think, to get the full impact is seeing it kind of in its folded, when it's all folded and kind of ready to be handed out to the student. So hopefully that kind of, there's not really fold lines on the PDF, but that's how it's kind of arranged. So step 1, I really wanted them to kind of do a self-assessment. So I thought it was important for the students to, before they even take the Super Strong, to kind of prioritize, what's most engaging and most interesting to them, people, data, things, or ideas. And I'll go over that a little bit more in detail, but so we have them do that really quick. And then step 2, we have them go right to the website. They just use, it's a real simple URL. They can even use a QR code if they're savvy with that. We give them an access code, and then they create a account, and then they take the assessment. And again, that's the time. The time for doing that's about 10 minutes or so, give or take. And then what I have them do is I have them write down their theme code in step 3. I'll go over the PowerPoint too. That kind of helps them know where to do this. But going over the brochure first, I'll kind of lay out the idea behind it. And then they circle their career interests that they say that they like. So if culinary or entrepreneurship was one of their interests that they either liked or they were unsure of, I would have them circle that. And then, the idea with this, right, is I'm trying to get them to see from step 3 to step 4 to step 5. By the way, in step 4, I kind of have them underline what their first, interest was on that step 1. So if it was people, I'll have them say, underline people, wherever you see people in that column, underline that. If it was ideas. And then I wanted them to see, their theme of interest, their career interests that they said that they liked, and kind of, as you look across, in step 5, you'll see the academic pathways that that are connected or overlay with those interests. So that was the concept. That was kind of the meat of this brochure, is that helped them kind of draw those connections. Then we kind of move on to step 6, which is CCD's full pathway, offerings with programs underneath, so they can kind of get a full view of what those look like. And then we titled under each of the different pathways, the themes and the concepts that are most prevalent in that pathway. So the one I always use as an example is health sciences, right? It's social, investigative, realistic. Is the themes that are really, most prevalent in that pathway. Not that the others aren't there to a certain degree, but and so again, just another way for the students to kind of see, their themes and how those themes, connect the different pathways here at CCD. And then at step 7, what we'll do is we'll have them, see if they can identify a pathway or two that seems to be most aligned with their interests and their goals. And then we actually added this on a little bit later, kind of a Likert scale of sorts, I guess. How decisive or indecisive they are that this is a pathway that might be a good fit for them. And so that's yielded some pretty good information. And also, as a community college, we want to know: are they on the transfer pathway? Are they, are they going to just go right into the workforce after their time here at CCD after they graduate? So, with the concept of the brochure, we really wanted to kind of see. I really wanted them to kind of connect their interests to the different academic pathways, but I really wanted to create different points of validation. So I guess what I mean by that is, the students, they kind of self-assess initially, what's most interesting or engaging for them. The student gets their RIASEC themes by taking the assessment. And then the students, validate their career interests everybody gets 6 unique career interests out of a possible 30 based on their assessment, and they get to say whether they like or they're unsure, they dislike. So in the presentation slide, I'll show you a little bit of where they, in the instrument, how they do that exactly. So I really wanted to create, multiple points of discussion that advisors or anybody working with a student, that was familiar with the brochure or the instrument can engage the student with. Okay, so next up, I'm going to show a PowerPoint that we use, and that they'll have some screenshots of the SuperStrong tool, and just kind of get the student experience when they're taking it, how they're viewing their results, and how to proceed with the steps on the brochure. So, but maybe I'll pause for a question or two for a moment if anybody has any questions on that brochure.
Someone asked if they're able to adapt the brochure to their college. Yeah, I mean, I think the point of this webinar is to kind of sort of share out best practices, and I'm, this was sort of the content was really my idea, and we had an amazing creative services department that really helped create this visualization. I would have never been able to create the visual aspects of the brochure like they did. But yes, I think it's we're kind of sharing resources to help others who are engaged in this work, and that's absolutely fine. Great, thank you. And in step 7, you asked an evaluation question. Did you collect the brochure afterwards? Or I guess they're asking, how did you collect the answers to that? That's a great question. So as the students leave the SuperStrong session, the next step is they actually meet with the advisors. And so we have our advising section in new student orientation kind of divided out by pathway, and they have an initial discussion with kind of our head advisor to kind of sort them on the pathway. So at that point, that head advisor is then collecting, asking that student, why are you here? What are you interested in doing? They're taking a look at the brochure, and then they're writing down that information. And I think I would really have loved to have the copy of the brochure, and I think we were still kind of looking to see, if we can do that. But I also wanted the students to walk away with it so they could refer to it later on. During some of the new student orientation sessions, they were actually, writing down the results of that evaluation. How strong or how confident that the students were that this pathway was a good fit for them. So yes, we did collect that data, and that's some of the data. What we did, or what I did primarily, was look to see how those discussions went after the assessment, and see what the student results on with the SuperStrong. I'll go over that in a little bit as far as kind of what we saw, but hopefully that answers that question. Okay. Thank you. I think just in the interest of time, I'll save these for the end, and if not, what we'll do is we'll follow up with everyone. But I'd like just to have you go ahead and just continue with the presentation. Thank you all for asking questions. So just really quickly, what I wanted to just show you all was the slides that we use to help guide that discussion with, or guide the results of the assessment that the students take. So I'll go through this pretty quickly. So you'll have copies of these slides if you want to look at them more closely, but just kind of gives you the idea of how we guided students through the SuperStrong assessment and try to keep them on the same, everybody on the same page. We start off, there's a little video that about the SuperStrong. It's a little YouTube video that we show. It's kind of a, it kind of sets the tone, I think, for them taking the assessment. So we do that first. And then again, just kind of what I already talked to you folks about as far as, the different steps on the brochure. Then we'll say, now prioritize, what you feel is most interesting or engaging to you, and write it down in step 1. And this, here's a little view of the instrument. So we'll then have them either, just type in the website into their browser, and we'll say, here's where you put the access code. We say use your school email, your personal email. And we really emphasize, this tool you're going to continue to have access to and can refer back to, later on. So we really try to make that clear to them.
one-time kind of thing. So they created an account, and then after the and as they answer the question, they don't, what's nice about it is they don't have to hit next. As soon as they answer one of the questions, it automatically advances to the next question. So, and what we do is we kind of bounce around, and we have about 4 or 5 people in our new student orientation sessions, and so we ask the students to kind of raise their hand if they're having trouble logging in, or creating an account, or if they're just getting stuck somewhere. So that that's usually effective enough for everybody to kind of get through it and not have students get hung up and not have a way to get help. Then what we do is really we just kind of guide them through their results. So I'll let them know at the top right there's a menu bar, you'll get a drop down. If you look at insights, you'll be able to see your theme interests. So then I'll have them pull out the brochure and say write in step 3, write down your theme code. If it's conventional, investigative and social, write the theme code up top. And then so from that part, they actually scroll down and then they see their personal styles. And this isn't incorporated in the brochure anywhere, but I do kind of spend a moment just to kind of touch on this. I think this is really engaging for students, especially the learning environment. I'll say to the group, some of you might like to work either to learn primarily through hands-on activities, or some of you really like to learn through listening and reading. So it's really good information about yourself, how you work individually or how you work on a team, your leadership style. So I think that's really informative information for the students. And then they'll scroll down, and here's where they get their top 6 career interests. And I'll say, now, let us know if you if you like that career interest, if you're unsure, if you dislike. So they'll go through each 6. They'll kind of scroll down and then touch on the icon that represents whether they're interested in it or not, or it's appealing to them. And then I'll kind of explain now, as you go through your career interests and you say you either like or you're unsure of them, underline them here in the brochure. So for example, if writing in mass communications is a bad example, I had the wrong slide up here, but the social sciences. But if it was writing in mass communication, they would underline that in their brochure. And then in step 4, I'll have them again refer back to step 1 and the initial self-assessment that they did, and I'll say if ideas were something that were appealing to you or most engaging to you, find that in the column and underline it. And then, at this point, they're sort of, they're starting to kind of finish up with the assessment. But before that, they kind of put their phones away and we do a little bit more discussion. I have them, I show them how they can find more information on those career pathways, occupations that are listed under those career pathways, I should say. So I'll have them get into that drop down again and click on their interests, and then they can see the different occupations that are associated with that career interest. And so I'll tell them, hey, you can click on any of these careers and find out really important information. Is it growing? Is it what's the salary look like? What level of education do you need? And this is really interesting. This is the part that I really connect those students who are decided and they know what they want to do. They really find this information interesting, and I like how it's embedded in the instrument. And they can also just do a career search on the top right. They can actually just type in any career that they want to explore if it's not listed under one of their career interests. And who likes this a lot? We have some parents that'll kind of tag along through our new student orientation, and they particularly really love this part. And then essentially, then I know there's a lot of career experts out there. So, but we just kind of give them a little bit more context on their themes. What the realistic theme is all about. So I won't spend much time with this, but investigative, artistic, social, enterprising theme, conventional, and then we might take some time and if we have a little bit of time, we'll try to engage the students. Get them to maybe do a little breakout session or talk to their neighbor about some of their results. Sometimes we've had time for that, sometimes we don't. I personally would like to double this time with this work and do more of that. And I think as an institution, we want to create more space for that, but we haven't quite got there yet. So then kind of my big, concept to kind of transmit to students, I'll say, take a look at your brochure and see where you've underlined your interests and start to see how they connect to the different pathways here at CCD. Because those pathways contain academic curriculum and careers that tend to align with those interests and preferences in that particular row. So, kind of show from left to right, through the rows how those interests connect to the pathways here at CCD. And again, I'll have them take a look at step 6, where it shows, all the different pathway options and the programs underneath, and let them know about the themes that are kind of represented in each of those pathways. And this is again where we then ask them to, indicate which pathway might be a good fit. So just really quickly, because I know I'm kind of running out of time, some of the things that we learned. Students are really comfortable with technology, and I think that surprised some of our staff and faculty, how easily this was done at New Student Orientation. The technology equity gap is really closed, especially with mobile. I know especially with Wi-Fi service and all that, there's still a gap, but pretty much every student who comes to us has a phone. And the Super Strong is engaging. There's a lot of ways that they can work with that tool, and it's in a format that they find familiar and engaging. So it was nice to see that response. I kind of talked about the parents' response and really them being appreciative of that session that we did with students. And I think that doing it on their mobile device versus on a computer lab somewhere, I think that creates more of an ownership. They have the URL in their history. I think it's more personalized. I think that was kind of maybe surprising for some of us. And I also think talking about students who might have come to CCD with some idea of what they want to do, I think there was a lot of students who were kind of were refreshed to see that their interests and what they wanted to do aligned. I think that was actually kind of a surprising outcome for me. For some of us, students were really affirmed by what they were going into. That they were like, I was, they was like, I was a little bit doubtful, but this really kind of, pointed me in a direction where, hey, I'm actually kind of on the right path here. This isn't totally, outside of what my interests are. What we need to improve, I think, kind of just what I mentioned before. We really do need to create more time to unpack these results. I mean, I would love to have another 45 minutes where students maybe meet with their pathway advisors in kind of a group sort of setting, and they talk through their results, or talk with some of their other folks who are attending New Student Orientation. So we really do want to create more of a time and a space for that. We don't really have a great plan for students with accessibility issues, or especially students who might have very little English acquisition. Those students, we just kind of troubleshooted those students, meaning that we would just kind of work with them individually if those issues were present. Keeping students in sync when they did it in real time, that wasn't too challenging, but sometimes there was students who did kind of fall behind, and so I think it was just kind of syncing them up was a little bit of a challenge, but I think for the most part we worked through that. But it did take like an engaged 3 or 4 or 5 people in the room to really help students that were kind of needing some extra help, giving them that support. And I think that's how we really kind of overcame some of those issues. And then we have online students. We don't really have a way for them to engage with this in an online format, so that's something we're talking about now currently. And just really quickly, a kind of last slide on the data. We've been pulling a lot of data to see what students choose as their degree or pathway. after they've taken the super strong results. We looked at a few different cohorts in our we had about, I think about 1,200 students, 1,230, I think, took the assessment. We started a little bit after we started about June, and we had a few orientations prior to the super strong implementation. But we looked at those groups, and we looked at undecided groups. We looked at students who were, declared a pathway, or students who were kind of more in a general degree, like a Associate of General Studies or Associate of Arts or Associate of Science. And I looked at, the theme code and those career interests or basic interest scales, and I took a look at those advising notes to see what students were, what they're saying they wanted to pursue as far as a program or a career. And really about, close to 90% of the students in the new student orientation groups that we studied did pick something that was pretty strongly connected to their results, either their theme code or their basic interest scales that they indicated they liked. So that was really kind of refreshing to see that data and to know that this tool was, if not reinforcing something that they were already interested in doing, it was helping inform their decision more clearly. And of course, I would like to see this tool, expanded college-wide. Our advisors are, getting more familiar with the tools. How do we build a culture of career exploration and interest talk? How do we identify those students who really need more of that work? I think this is a way to kind of, by scaling up career exploration at a larger level, I think we're able to, identify those students who might not be the ones who, get referred or self-refer to our Career Services Center, or maybe just don't feel comfortable talking to their advisor about some of their, some of the questions that they have about whether they're on the right pathway or not. I think this just opens up a whole new set of students that we can, strategically target and engage with. Kind of the concept of intrusive advising and, bringing these services, to the student experience as a natural course of action, as opposed to kind of, having it be an outlying kind of activity. And I think that, ultimately we're going to be able to drive more traffic to our Career Services Center because of this work and because we're able to reach out, the students who've taken this assessment. So I hope I didn't go, it looks like I went over a little bit, but I'm happy to stay and take some questions, and hopefully you all found this interesting and informative, and I guess my hope is that maybe it'll spark some ideas or opportunities for working with students maybe differently than you traditionally have at your campuses. So there's my contact information. I'd be happy to chat with everybody in the audience and talk more about what we've done and ideas that you've had, and I look forward to that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you everyone for staying on as well. We have quite a few people still on the call, so we really appreciate it. I know we went over the scheduled time, but this was really great content. So we have several questions that still came in, but what I would like to do is we have Mike sharing his contact info here, but we will also be going through all the questions, and we will go ahead and follow up with each of you because we want to make sure that we answer everything that you asked. So with that being said, like I said, I'm sorry that we couldn't answer all the questions, but you will be hearing from us, and you will probably be hearing from Holly Clark. So she will be sending out the follow-ups that will include the link to this recording, the link to the presentation slides that Mike has shared, and also the link to the brochure if you didn't download it during the webinar. So that's okay. We'll send you all of that. You'll have it in one place. So thank you all for your time today, and thank you, Mike. You did an outstanding job, and it's really great to hear all this work that you've done. It's pretty inspiring, and it's just great to see what the results that you're getting. So thank you so much, and I hope we see you all at another webinar soon. So thanks again, Mike, and thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.